This morning, Donald Trump won Texas last November. So why does he want an audit of election results here? We'll discuss the politics of it. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick wants to grow the Republican majority in the state Senate. We'll talk to him about how and where. Plus, whether the state's new abortion law threatens to clog Texas courts with lawsuits. Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo slashing property taxes. What COVID might look like there this winter in Houston, and what she expects that her reelection will cost next year. And Rick Wilson from the Lincoln Project taking on Governor Greg Abbott, explaining why he thinks Abbott is more dangerous than Donald Trump.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning to our viewers across the state. As always on Sunday, let's begin this week with the top political headlines across Texas. We'll start with the turnover in the Texas House. At least 10 state lawmakers will not seek re-election. Many saying they want to spend more time with their family. Among them is State Rep Chris Patty from Marshall. Patty is important because he chairs the House State Affairs Committee. Congresswoman Liz Cheney is coming to Dallas to fundraise. Former President George W. Bush is headlining a fundraiser for Cheney next month. And Herschel Walker is returning to Dallas as well. The former Dallas Cowboy is running for U.S. Senate as a Republican in Georgia. He too has an upcoming fundraiser planned in Dallas. And the federal government is now investigating the Texas Education Agency. The Department of Education is looking to see if the TEA's no mask mandate in schools could threaten the health of students with disabilities. Feds already have similar investigations underway in Iowa, in Oklahoma, in South Carolina, Tennessee, and in Utah. Our first guest this morning, though, is the number 2 official here in Texas, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. He's hoping to grow the Republican majority in the state Senate as lawmakers begin to redraw election maps. The question is how and where. Plus, after years of Republicans wanting to rid the courts of frivolous lawsuits, doesn't the state's new abortion law threaten to do the opposite? Those were among the questions we had for the Lieutenant Governor.
Lieutenant Governor, good to see you again. Once the maps are finalized, do you expect that the Republican majority in the state Senate will increase?
I would think so. The map that's been put out could give the Republicans an extra seat in Senate. I think it's Senate District 10, which is Fort Worth and out into the rural areas. And remember that seat, though, Jason. That seat has ping-ponged back between a Republican and a Democrat. And what people don't understand about the whole map drawing process, Jason, is that there are a lot of limits on it. Some of those are just federal law, but there's also the number of voters. So we have this year about a 29 million population. The last time we drew maps 10 years ago, it was 24 million. 10 years before that, it was 18 million. So you can see that's a tremendous increase in population. And each district, each Senate district, has to have the same amount of voters within a range. So the average would be, if you divide 31 into our population, is about 911,000. Well, you can't get every district to be exactly that. So you have a little bit of a range above it, a little bit of a range below it.
Senate District 10, though, Tarrant County you were talking about, which Beverly Powell is the current elected official there. Yeah. If you add Johnson County and Parker County to this Tarrant County cutout that exists right now, wouldn't that just make it that much harder for a Democrat to ever get elected there?
Jason, you're missing the point. The point is we have to adjust for the population growth in Dallas, the population growth in Fort Worth, the population growth in all the areas. And all those districts have to be pretty much the same. So they're all going to change. And when you start changing the cities, you start changing the surrounding areas. And by the way, the map that is introduced doesn't mean that's the final map. That's the map that's introduced. We can't draw a map that has 700,000 in a rural area and 1,000,001 in downtown Dallas. They all have to be about the same. And so as you start coming in and pushing out, some districts start taking shapes.
I want to ask you about the new abortion law also. What obviously makes it so different and yes. legal genius is that anyone can sue abortion providers or anyone responsible as opposed to the yes. state actually enforcing it. But Governor, I've heard Republicans argue for decades about tort reform, saying we need to clear out the courts of all these frivolous lawsuits. Doesn't this law threaten to clog up the courts with a bunch of lawsuits?
I hope not, because I hope we don't have 50,000 babies aborted every year. That's what I hope, Jason. Look, I'm unashamedly pro-life. I respect and understand that there are some people who have a different view. Just for me personally, and I'm willing to be criticized over it, as many members who are pro-life. I don't criticize the other side. This is where I am. But this is not about tort reform. This is not about money unless you're Planned Parenthood, because they make billions from this. For me, this is never about money. This is about saving the life of a baby that has a beating heart. And I think what's going to happen, Jason, is that many people, look, right now, the national polls show 47% support, 42% against, but a lot of people now who are kind of on the fence, and look, no one wants to take the life of an innocent child in the womb. But some people say, well, we can do this, we can do that, we can do this. But they've never actually been confronted with the fact that, are you going to make the decision now to take the life of a baby with a beating heart? People have never really kind of analyzed it and thought through it like that. And we think it's a good law. We're saving lives. And, I understand some people disagree.
Governor, last question for you. Lots of Republicans obviously facing primary challengers next spring. Are you planning to make any endorsements at all in any of the races?
We'll get to endorsements later. Right now, I'm focused on getting these maps drawn and passed, because if we don't get them drawn and passed, Jason, by November 15th, it will push the elections back from March to April. And if we wait another month, April to May.
Governor, we'll let you get back to work. Thank you for the time.
Hey, thank you, Jason.
Let's go to Congress now, where the clock is ticking for Democrats there. Can they ever pass changes to voting rights? It could require Texas to get permission before changing voting districts right now. How about that infrastructure bill? And then there's President Biden's $3.5 trillion spending bill. Democratic leaders were hoping to get all of this done this month. Let's go to Washington now, and Abby Livingston is there. She's the D.C. bureau chief for the Texas Tribune. Abby, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Democrats have a lot they want to pass. What will get done? What will not get done anytime soon?
Well, the fact that I can't answer that authoritatively just shows how tough this situation is. I think there are a few people who know how to whip the Senate better than President Joe Biden. And indisputably, there's nobody who knows how alive right now who can whip the House better than Speaker Nancy Pelosi. So this is testing their skills. And basically, they're all kind of wrapped up together in a way. There's these infrastructure programs that there's two separate bills. There's a possible government shutdown, and there is a debt ceiling that needs to be increased. These are all very insular language. But what it boils down to is this is the key to stability and the future of Joe Biden's agenda. And Republicans are saying, even as they invoked more debt when they were in control by cutting taxes, they don't want to rack up more debt for Democratic priorities. But Democrats say they were willing to do that for Republicans on the debt ceiling years ago.
Yeah, it was fine then, it's not now. Let's talk about what happened Friday morning in the U.S. Senate. There was a vote over Roe v. Wade there. It did pass. What was the point?
The point was to put people on the record. And what we saw was an almost completely divided partisan vote, Republicans against the bill, Democrats for it. The one exception was U.S. Representative Henry Cuellar of Laredo. He's a Democrat who voted with the Republicans, which didn't surprise me too much. But it just shows how abortion has completely sorted itself out within the parties.
All right, Abby, back to you in a moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo facing a Republican challenger next year. What could re-election cost her? That's among the questions we have. And the Lincoln Project taking on Governor Greg Abbott. Rick Wilson, a co-founder of the group, telling us why he thinks Abbott is more dangerous than Donald Trump. We're not just on the political beat on Sunday mornings here, all new conversations plus hot political topics in Texas every Tuesday in our political podcast. It's called Yallitics. Look for us wherever you get your podcasts. Let's go to Houston now, to Harris County, where commissioners there just slashed the property tax rate. Our next guest is the county judge in Harris County, Democrat Lena Hidalgo, who also just found out she faces a Republican challenger when she runs for re-election next year.
Judge Hidalgo, thanks and welcome back to our program here. Let's start with the Commissioner's Court there in Harris County, cutting the effective property tax rate by 2.2%. Of course, county taxes only make up a small portion of what property owners pay, but it's still significant. I'm curious, how did it happen and why not go any deeper than that?
So one way to think about taxes is to think about the budget, right? Because ultimately that's what we need to collect the revenue for. And earlier this year in Harris County, our commissioners court passed a budget unanimously in a bipartisan basis. And it was a budget that not only funded basic services, the usual roads and bridges, but also helped us catch up on some of the areas where we've been underfunded. For example, we have a lot of industry in Harris County, and there are chemical releases all the time. We didn't have air monitoring capabilities. Our public health department serves millions and millions of people, woefully underfunded. I mean, there are so many areas that just flew under the radar, and departments were afraid to ask for funds. And so that budget passed, and we needed that amount of taxes in order to be able to fund the budget that we passed. Now, ultimately, we actually passed around a 3% tax cut because that was the only proposal that we could get our Republican colleagues to support.
The COVID infection rate is fortunately falling again, but what are health experts in Harris County they're telling you that we might see this winter?
What I hear from the experts is so long as people aren't getting vaccinated, it's a little bit of a wild card out there. I think very few expected the outbreak from the Delta variant to be this extreme. It is possible that at some point, and I hope and we need to, be able to simply live with this. But in order to do that, we really need people to get vaccinated.
Judge, we just saw Hurricane Nicholas hit the Gulf Coast recently. President Biden's infrastructure plan, it does not include funding for the so-called Ike Dike, that offshore barrier like the one that New Orleans has that would protect the Gulf Coast from storm surge flooding. Curious what you think congressional Democrats are making a mistake by not including that in funding and not finally getting that thing built.
I'm very concerned about a hurricane coming up the Houston ship channel. That would not affect us, Harris County. Folks watching from elsewhere will say, well, what do I care? We're the heart of the petrochemical industry. When Hurricane Ike affected us, and it didn't come straight up our ship channel, it was enough damage to cause gas prices to go up around the nation for a while. Enormous environmental damage. And so this is the nation's energy economy that is living here. And we have to protect it on top of the lives, on top of the environment, on top of just the sheer infrastructure and work that comprises this region. And so we desperately need that coastal barrier. I know that the congressional delegation locally is very much fighting to get that funding. And we have to remember it's not like the funding comes and the barrier comes up the next day. It is a very long project. So I'm going to keep pushing for that. We need our legislative delegation, not just locally, but in the state and the nation, to recognize the importance of it. And then locally, we're working with neighboring counties, with our industry, with the port to try and see, okay, what might be sort of an interim limited solution, because we can't wait 15 years for this thing to be built and just hope we're not going to be hit before then. Judge,
I just read that you drew a Republican challenger for the fall election next year. Houston Chronicle's reporting, I'm sure you've probably seen, that the president of the Humble ISD School Board, I think Martha Dixon, that she intends to run. How much do you expect your reelection to cost next year?
Well, I am not taking anything for granted. I think we had a challenger already. Someone had filed for a judge a few weeks ago. I'm not remembering the name already. So a very, very much I'm expecting all manner of challengers. There's always going to be naysayers. So I'm ready for a fight. I'm going to take everything seriously, but I know we're going to win. We have a lot of support. I continue to focus on doing right by the community, and it's going to be expensive, probably. Yeah, a couple $1 million, I'd imagine, at the very least.
Judge, we always appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Governor Greg Abbott faces some fierce attack ads right now. Maybe you've seen them, and they are coming from former Republicans, not direct competitors, though. It's the Lincoln Project, which took on Donald Trump last year. Now it is targeting two governors. Rick Wilson, the co-founder of the Lincoln Project, is on the latest episode of Yallitics, and he explains why he thinks that Governor Abbott is more dangerous than Donald Trump.
There was a naive moment in the end of 2020 where I thought, yeah, we beat Trump. I'm going to go sit on a beach and write another book. No.
No.
The thing that has come after Trump is more deadly and dangerous because look, both Abbott and DeSantis in particular, they're able to mask the silliness and the stupidity and the racial characteristics of Trumpism, and try to pretend that they're normal Republicans, and try to pretend that they still represent something the Republican Party once stood for. And that's dangerous because there are a lot of people who were uncomfortable with Trump, but who will slide into the warm bath of authoritarian statism. It's the old frog boils slowly thing. The frog dies slowly because it doesn't realize how hot the water's getting. And so I think it's a real concern that it is a fight, and the fight against this movement that Trump sort of embodied and encouraged is something that will be going on for longer than we had wanted it to, frankly. But you've got to cause the political opportunity costs of being in that space to be higher than the political benefits of it.
Rick Wilson talking to us live there. You can download that episode of Yallitics wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up, Donald Trump did win Texas last November, so why did he ask for and get an audit of the election results in this state? We'll talk about the politics of all that coming up next in the Roundtable.
This is Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley.
Time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Back with us is Abby Livingston from the Texas Tribune in Washington, D.C. Bud Kennedy is here every week from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and Bernadine Steptoe, the political producer at WFAA in Dallas, joins us as well. Abby, let's start with you. And the big news that happened here last Thursday, Donald Trump, or his campaign at least, somebody from the Trump organization, calling for an audit of the Texas election results. Trump won Texas last year. What in the world is he looking for?
Well, that is the question. And I talked to some Texas legislative staffers down in Austin, and there was a great deal of curiosity about the letter that Trump delivered making that ask. And it included a lot of esoteric Texas ledge jargon that raised a lot of eyebrows. And there were many questions about how this came on the former president's radar and what spurred him into action on our state specifically.
And Bud, that letter came out from Trump about 10:30 in the morning, and by 6 or 7 o'clock, there had already been an announcement that the Secretary of State had launched this audit. What's this about?
Well, there are 4 counties now that are going to be audited. Usually when you're going to audit an election, you audit a precinct. You find a precinct that's a little irregular, and you say, okay, let's look at that precinct. If that turns out to be fishy, then you look at another precinct. This is a much bigger version of that. They're going to start with 4 counties, including Collin, Dallas, and Tarrant, and North Texas. And, if I were the county officials here, I'd tell them, come on, the office opens at 8 o'clock, audit all you want. Stop at the check stop, bring kolaches on your way.
Bring kolaches on the way. Bernadine, even Governor Abbott said last November that the election ran fine here in this state. What do you think's going on with this?
I think that they're trying to sow doubt towards the upcoming election, because this is the textbook Trump.
Yeah.
Now, whoever sent the letter, there is a question as to who wrote the letter, but it's typical Republican strategy. They're trying to sow doubt in this upcoming election by going in and audit previous counties. And remember, in the letter, it said that they're going to audit two Democrats and
right.
but Biden won 3 of them.
That's a good point. Bud, you're about to jump in?
Jason, this is not just trying to raise doubt. This is more from the My Pillow guy and the Sidney Powell crowd. And they're trying to motivate voters. A lot of people involved in this are evangelical conservative Republicans who believe that church voters didn't turn out the way they should have. They want to go out to their churches and say, you people didn't vote. You people should get out and vote so you don't get cheated by the other side. They're trying to motivate voters.
Yeah.
Abby, let's switch off to redistricting. Everyone is waiting in this state to find out what the new congressional maps look like, especially because there are 2 new congressional seats that are going to happen. I'm hearing that the 2 new seats might go to Democrats, but it won't be a net gain for Democrats because they might lose 2 seats somewhere else in the state. What are you hearing?
Well, the sense I get is that Republicans, even though they are more empowered than they've ever been to go aggressive on redistricting, is that at least until we see the map, that they want to take a conservative approach for incumbent protection, which would mean that drawing up districts that would help Republicans win re-election rather than taking out Democrats.
Bernadine, where in the state can Republicans pick up seats and where can Democrats pick up seats?
Well, Democrats picking up seats, that's a $100 million question, because I cannot see the Republican Party, which is in control, giving Democrats any additional seats. But I think that particularly on the state level, Republicans can pick up Senator Powell's seat over in Tarrant County.
Yeah.
Now, as Abby said, we'll wait and look at the maps, but I just cannot see Republicans giving Democrats additional seats.
Bud,
they might net it out.
Sorry, Bernadine, didn't mean to step on you. But Bud, do you think that any incumbents are in trouble here in the final moments?
I don't think any Democrat in Congress in Texas should feel safe. I think that every district is going to be looked at. They want to have enough Republican votes to take back the House. Certainly in the state Senate, Senator Powell's seat's always been a swing seat. It looks like it'll swing back to the Republicans.
We shall see. Guys, thank you so much. Abby, thanks for being here as well, too. Thank you for watching. We're back again next Sunday to take you inside Texas politics. Hope you can join us then. Until then, though, hope you have a great day.